Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm in Montreal, Evan, and I hope you're doing well today.
I am, and I'm in rainy Ottawa today.
Well, it's rainy too. I was going to do this
Oh,
outside in a nice park, but of course, the weather is not cooperating with me. So I'm inside in a mall, and I hope that the background noise is not bothering people
so,
too
so
much.
did you
Um,
did you say you're inside a mall?
Yeah, well, because my kids are watching a movie next door, so I'm
Okay,
stuck at the the Place Montréal. It's
okay.
all good.
Okay.
This I'm here for a. It's part of an adventure for my middle child who's just graduating in high school this year. So this is the graduation present adventure part one. We're in
Oh,
Montreal
cool.
for a couple of days to do fun things, and I was just also in Toronto for business earlier this week. And we'll get back to this at some point, but there's something to be said for women mayors.
Okay.
Attention, yeah,
Do
cleanliness and
tell.
attention to
Do tell.
detail.
Okay.
Cleanliness in the downtown, that's improved massively. And attention to detail, having flowers on the street, having trees being planted.
And you attribute this to
No,
a
I mean, I
gene,
don't know. This is I don't know
DNA.
if it's if there's any truth to my feeling, but I was just walking around both cities thinking, gosh darn it, there is there's
No,
something
no.
here happening.
It,
And I'm
it,
going to look into this. But it could
the
be
fact
that a
that the
female
fact that
mayor
you
doesn't
notice,
makes a difference. Mhm.
Bridget, the fact that you notice is important. It says
Right.
something, because I'm
Yeah.
sure you're not the only person that is noticing.
hmm So getting back to Ottawa,
Sure,
there's a new poll.
there
There's a
is.
new liaison poll about the four. I don't think they talked about the fifth candidate. They still talk about Tim Tierney, who's not running,
No,
but they're
well,
talking good.
no, they're talking. Well, first of all, my knowledge of the poll at this stage is just from what iPolitics
hmm
and Ottawa Compass have reported.
Right.
I haven't actually
Same.
seen David Valentine's report, so the official Ottawa Tracker June poll. I think
hmm
he'll probably be posting that in the next couple of days.
Right. And so we can link to that if it comes to that. And if he
Yeah,
wants to reach out and explain his process, I'll be happy
sure.
to hear him out. But tell me what surprises you in the latest one.
Well, in a sense, I'm happy that it confirms something that I'm not the only one, um, been saying for the last month or 6 weeks. Watch Lawson. Everybody has been so used to seeing this as a Sutcliffe Leaper race. And ever since Lawson came in January, and certainly by the time the May poll came around and showed him at, I think it was 14%, because iPolitics reported that in the latest poll, he went up to 21%.
hmm Which is
So
amazing for an
that
outsider who's not known.
exactly, that's a
hmm
7 point increase. That is amazing. Now,
hmm
19, all the caveats apply. Margin of error, 19 times out of 20.
And we're
Is it a
way
rogue?
out too. We're
Yeah,
four
is it
months
a rogue
away.
poll?
hmm
Rogue
hmm
poll.
hmm hmm
There are any number of warnings that we should give viewers about that. Unfortunately, we don't have other public polls to compare it to. I imagine the campaigns have their own internal polling to validate what
hmm
Liaison is reporting. But that to me, I think maybe the emerging story of this mayoral campaign is the degree to which Alex Lawson is drawing away conservative voters from Mark Sutcliffe's 2022 vote. And it's all a matter of how many. And my column yesterday that I posted on my Substack, I offered three scenarios for what the polling could look like a week before election day and what that would mean. And one of the I think scenario number three I laid out and said is where Sutcliffe, Leaper, and Lawson are neck and neck. So it's a really tight three-way race, and Sarah Vanamuthu is sitting at 8%.
So
Where
he's increased his numbers too, a little bit.
largely from 5 to
Right.
6%. So at this stage,
And right. And then Leaper lost again, marginally,
the
I
one
think by a
point.
point, 1 point or so. Right. And
But
and Mark Sutcliffe also lost a point. So these
well,
1 or 2 points were
Mark
like,
Sutcliffe lost
nah.
4 points.
Oh,
Or
okay.
did he lose 1 point? It depends whether you're talking
hmm
about undecided
hmm
or decided voters.
hmm Okay.
He may have been at 38. Yeah. So in any event, the story is Mark Sutcliffe dropping below 40. The incumbent mayor does not want to be under 40.
hmm
That's Yellow lights are flashing. Obviously, Leaper doesn't want to go under 30 because that's his natural base.
Hmm.
And Brigitte, if Jeff Leaper, and 4 months is like 100 years in normal time. Okay?
Hmm.
So things could shift. People could race ahead, fall back, all of that dynamic. There's lots of time for that to occur. But if Jeff Leaper falls under 30%, if he starts to track at 28 in July and August, 28 and 29, that tells me that the progressive base in Ottawa has not swung behind him,
Hmm.
and that Neil Sarabanamutu probably is taking votes away from Jeff.
Right. Now, if you're running Mark Sutcliffe's campaign, sorry,
Yeah,
not to cut you off, but I want to give
yeah,
people some ways, a sense of how we're thinking about it. And I
sure.
don't know if you and I are thinking about it the same
Yeah,
way, but if I were running Mark Sutcliffe's campaign right now and I saw the rise of not Alan, sorry, Alex Lawson, sorry, I know his name.
yeah,
Um, how would you, like you said, yellow lights should be flashing,
yes.
and then they should. So how do you adjust Mark's campaign to try and stop
Well,
that
I mean,
trend?
I can't get into their heads. I can imagine what they're
Hmm.
thinking
But what
about.
would you do if you were the
Well,
one running it, right? What
well,
issues would be?
one thing I would stop doing, which is, I don't know what portion of Ottawa residents are noticing this. I would stop having my candidate blame the previous council and the previous mayor. So that's one thing I would just say we're not going to go there anymore. We don't
Hmm.
need to go in there. We can win
Hmm.
without dumping on the previous council and by extension a number of our allies on council.
And to be clear, that's how Mark Sutcliffe launched his official camp. Once he filled out his
Right.
paperwork, like that
Yeah.
was one of his first messages out there was to say,
Yeah.
"I'm running for reelection because," and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't remember his
The
exact
mess.
words,
The
but
mess.
because I inherited a mess and I still need time to fix it. That's essentially his message,
Yeah.
correct?
That,
Right.
yeah. That's
And
that's
I
a,
thought
that.
that's a weird message.
I agree
Vote
with
for
you,
me
Brigitte.
because of the old guys. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a weird message, as you said, to be you can make it a sub message. You could make it a responsive line in comms and PR. We
Mhm.
have responsive lines. If a reporter asks us an embarrassing question, we'll have a line ready for that. But we're not going to
That's right.
volunteer the line unless we're
Thank you.
prompted, right? So we
Yeah.
call those responsive lines.
Hmm.
So the previous council having created a mess is, to me, a responsive line. It's not a proactive line. In fact, if you're a front runner, you usually don't need to lead with a negative message. You can lead with a very positive message. These are all the wonderful things that I've done for you, for
Right.
us,
And here's the
together.
plan for what I want to do
Yeah,
next from
and this is what I
here.
plan to do.
That's right.
So I am surprised that with a sophisticated operation such as the mayor has, with all communication advisors that he has, that he would stumble out of the block like that.
I have a feeling he did that on purpose.
Oh, okay. Well, why?
And I don't know. That's my question. If he
Okay.
really did that on purpose, like, why go there? I really don't get it.
Yeah. So that's the first thing I would do. And then, and I would be leery of attacking Lawson, because if he starts attacking Lawson, attacking in the classic attack ad way, Lawson as convoy Alex, he better be
Hmm.
careful
Hmm.
because he will get slammed. I don't think the Lawson campaign will let that go for a second. They'll
Hmm.
be very aggressive, and they should be.
Yeah.
And Sutcliffe will regret the day his campaign attempted to do that, even as if it's with his surrogates, right? Not him
Right.
directly, but with surrogates.
And just to
So
be clear for people who may not follow this as maniacally as we do, the issue is that Alex Lawson, being in the construction trades, when the
yeah,
convoy folks came along, there was some issue with public. They had issue. They had no toilets. They had nothing
that's
like
right.
that, and he provided some porta potties. I want to say,
Yeah, that's right.
to, and then his line since then was to say, it's not like I was supporting the convoy. It's that I wanted to help not have people use the bathroom outside.
Yeah,
So that's okay. Do you believe this or do you not? Do you think that secretly Alex Lawson might support like I don't know. I
well,
don't
look,
know. I haven't
I
asked
will.
him and that's
Yeah,
for everyone to decide for
you
themselves.
can
But it's not
you
a
can.
clear support. It's not like Pierre
Yes,
Poilievre delivering donuts.
right. Okay. exactly. I didn't know that
Right.
Well, they have delivered donuts. So
Oh,
yes,
completely. Yes.
yeah,
And coffee.
and coffee. Okay. So, so those are the two things. So I would be very wary at this stage as a runner trying to attack Lawson in that way. I would stop the negative messaging and criticizing directly um, Jim Watson and the members of his council who are still on council.
Yes. Yes.
And I would stop this constant listing of all the wonderful things that he has done. Now, it's typically a
Mm,
front runner thing to do, right?
mhm.
But it's also a status quo candidate. It makes him a status quo candidate. Um, he will not admit to any failures that he is obviously that he's responsible for, and so it's a classic front runner campaign. But if you're asking me what are the things that he could do right now in response, those are the two things. So one thing to
Mhm.
avoid doing, and the other
Right.
thing, the dumping and criticizing the previous council, I would stop that.
So he's got also an extra difficulty, Sutcliffe, in that if he attacks the Lawson, he's also kind of indirectly telling supporters, voters who might vote for him, that they would be stupid to vote for Lawson, right? I mean, that's not what he would say directly, and that's not what he
Right.
means. But people receiving the message of a mayor criticizing the guy who's challenging him from the
Yeah.
right, um, who are themselves right wing voters or center right
Right. They are.
voters
They're
might see this.
conservative
Are you
leaning
telling me,
voters.
yeah, are you telling me, Mr. Mayor, that I don't know my own mind, right? There's always that danger when you're going on the offensive against a challenger who's attracting your voters away from you, that you're
Right.
you're sending indirectly, you're sending a message to those voters that they're
Yeah.
too stupid to know better.
So
That's always a danger.
it's always a danger, and what gave Mark Sutcliffe the win? He came in late into the campaign, late June in
Hmm.
2022. He only
Hmm.
really started campaigning in September. I mean, it was an extraordinary win when you think about it, and he should be congratulated for winning in 2022. But it was a coalition, right? It was a
Hmm.
liberal conservative coalition that, as with Jim Watson, right? It's the same coalition
Yeah.
that took Jim Watson across the finishing line. It was the same coalition that Mark Sutcliffe used. So that's why I say always that Mark Sutcliffe is using the Jim Watson playbook because it
And that
works.
worked against Catherine McKenney, who's very much more progressive than
That's right.
Sutcliffe is. But when you're defending your position against a good, credible challenger from the left, was Leaper, and what looks
And
to be not as credible, not as far as numbers yet and
right,
support percentages, but he's threatening at this point. The playbook has to change because you're
the
not at all
playbook.
fighting the same battle.
That's right. So I would imagine that Team Sutcliffe is and will be changing their approach in the next couple of weeks.
So what if you're Jeff Leaper now? That's interesting because Jeff Leaper can look at that dynamic between Lawson and
Mhm.
Sutcliffe and say, I'm benefiting from all of this because if they're both splitting the right and center right vote,
Right.
that allows me to come in, through the middle. So how would you go about advising Jeff Leaper now if you were advising
Okay.
Jeff Leaper?
Well, the advice. Who am I to give them advice? The kind of the back driver advice, maybe from
Hmm.
somebody like me, is that they should just continue to do what they're doing, which is intense canvassing in the outer suburbs.
Hmm.
What they're trying to do, they're not going to win in the outer suburbs, but they're going to decrease Mark Sutcliffe's margins in the other. So
And that's the game.
between
Yeah.
Lawson and Jeff Leaper, Mark Sutcliffe's margins across 10, 12 wards that he won handily in 2022, that is what will prevent him from getting a second term.
Mm. Is there a place for someone like maybe it's too early for that, but I see Neil Saravenamutu as having a lot of, he's out there with content
Yeah,
like every single day. And his videos to me, I mean, and I, in all fairness, I like Neil as a
yeah,
person on a personal level, same as
sure.
Jeff. Um,
Yeah,
so I'm more inclined to like their message than that of Alex Lawson. So that's, I'm just putting my bias out
Sure.
there. But I still see Neil's videos as being, they're, first of all, they're short, they're well made, they're simple, and his points, to me anyway, are clear. And so
Yeah.
is there a place for someone like Jeff Leeper, who's ahead, to every now and then or at some point to say, that's actually a really good idea Neil just had. I think I might agree with that. This is, I hadn't thought, right? Like stealing, or like,
Yeah.
it's like paying him a compliment to say, you know what, this is a great idea. I agree with Neil. We should do that. I mean, that would be different. Nobody campaigns this way. But wouldn't that be a
Well,
refreshing
you,
way to campaign?
you might argue that Mark Carney's government does that to Pierre Poilievre's
And it's
ideas.
working. See, that's why I'm asking that. Yeah, it
So
does work.
I think that type of positive acknowledgement usually will come later in the campaign, rather
But there's
rather
still
than
room for that, right? I'd love to see that personally.
yeah. I
Just,
think there's still
yeah.
room, and I'm glad you mentioned that Neil's videos. I think they are. They're sharp,
hmm
and we can get into that a bit later about differences amongst the four candidates. But I just would say, and I just reviewed some of Neil's videos myself. Um, just the idea of creating a Lansdowne inquiry if he's mayor, I just think, wow, that takes a lot of chutzpah, a lot of heart to put
hmm
that into the arena.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a double-edged sword too, because a
it's
lot
a
of people are
double-edged
like,
sword,
yeah,
of
like, no, I
course.
don't want another one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But the fact that he's willing to go out there and say these things, I think that a portion of the Ottawa electorate appreciates that. And in fact, I
hmm
have heard that people outside of central Ottawa, the central urban neighborhoods, they are now, there's more name recognition for Neil.
hmm
And some of them, what I've heard, like the fact that he's just willing to go out and say things that the other candidates are not willing to. Certainly, that
He's not,
Jeff
yeah.
Leeper and Mark Sutcliffe will not say.
Right. No, he's not pulling punches. That's fair.
Yes.
And also, they could be stupid to pull punches, because that's the only way he can make a name for himself, is to be out there and be, you
He has
don't
to
have
be.
to be as rude as I can get sometimes when I start
Right.
swearing.
Yeah.
But to be forceful and to be principled and to call things by their name
Yeah. So
and
I
come
just,
what may. So that's good. Yeah, I like
yeah.
that.
So I would just add something else related to our discussion here. I've been surprised that Jeff Leeper is not a better campaigner.
Mm.
Again, I did not know Jeff before. That's only he came on my radar screen. I wasn't paying that much attention to what he was doing in his previous councils. Um, but I thought he's a three-term councillor. He should be a better campaigner,
Mhm.
and I'm surprised that he isn't.
I'm going to
And
push back.
again, he's a very honorable person. He wants to do it. He wants the best for Ottawa. So it's not. I'm not criticizing him in that way. In that regard, it's not a personal criticism. It's
Mhm.
more like campaign ability to communicate.
I will push back on that. I think what you mean is
Okay.
he's not a great orator, but he is a
Okay.
good campaigner, and
Okay.
I think taking a page from the Bruce Vanjoy way of winning a
Please.
seat.
Yes.
By I mean, and I've seen Jeff at events, and I don't go out like that much, but whenever
Yeah.
I'm out, I almost always see him.
Okay.
And I see him talking to people directly, one on one, and having and I see people coming away from the conversations, even if they don't agree with him, um,
Sure.
satisfied that they had a chance to make their case, to say their bit, and satisfied that Jeff hears them.
Right. So maybe
Where
what I'm
that goes
saying.
is a different thing. But yes, but I hear you in the sense that he's not out there making those videos. He's not as um, nimble and
Yes.
agile and elegant as a public speaker as other people can be.
So
Neither
yeah,
is Mark Sutcliffe, by the way. But as
it's
camp,
true. It's true.
right?
That's
But
true. He likes to be behind a lectern. I noticed
hmm
in a suit.
hmm
I
right.
mean, I remember last year in the summer he was in these dark suits behind a lectern, and I thought, oh wow.
hmm
So let me revise my thought on Leaper. I don't think he's a good campaigner on a stage,
hmm That's fair. But he's
um,
everywhere talking to people, and that,
but everywhere
having
talking to
worked with
people.
Bruce Vanjoy on his federal campaign in Carleton,
Yeah,
different campaign, different people,
yeah,
different
yes,
everything. But I have seen this work.
right. and I'm surprised, and just I'll let it go. I just happened to look at his Jeff's Substack
Mhm.
um, newsletter, and it hasn't been updated in 2 months. Going, if you're a candidate, you should have a little more content up on your Substack.
I
So
agree.
these
So
are the
I,
things that surprise me about Jeff because he's an experienced politician. That's
mhm,
if this were
mhm. No,
his
fair
first
point.
time out, I wouldn't be saying anything. But it's like this is his third time out.
Maybe he's keeping it for later.
Sure.
One thing about Jeff Leeper is he's thoughtful, and so I'm pretty sure
Yes.
what he's doing is on purpose. So
Okay.
we'll see where that
We'll
goes.
see. We'll
I
see.
just before I move on to the Ottawa Citizen random profiles on the
Yeah.
four mayoral candidates, I just want us to touch on that briefly. But I wanted to update you. I had coffee with Joanne Canello
Yes.
earlier this week, and I asked
Okay.
her if she was considering herself a progressive, and she says she has no problem with that label,
Oh,
but she's not
interesting.
really into labels so
Yes.
much. She's
She's not
interested
into
in making
labels, but
people's
she's not.
lives
Yeah.
better, but she
Okay.
does not think progressive is an insult. And I agree with her on that. So
Okay.
I just thought I'd update you.
No,
It
no,
was a
that's
lovely
good.
coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think she wants to be labeled as a progressive, but she
Mhm.
doesn't. It doesn't bother her. Maybe.
Right. And I was curious because I live in that ward. So I was
Yeah.
curious about what people at the door are telling her. And
Mhm.
really, transit comes up a lot,
A lot.
including from people who don't take it.
Ah, that's very important. No,
Because
definitely. Because
you're paying for it, right?
yeah, you're paying for it, like school taxes, right? You're paying for it whether your kids are going to school or not. So you have an interest in it.
That's right. So she
Yeah,
hears that a lot. Mhm.
good.
So the Ottawa Citizen ran four profiles of the four mayoral candidates, and it's always useful to have these things. I don't know that I learned a whole bunch that was new. I'm not sure the exercise itself is necessary in this day and age because people define themselves differently. But is
Yes.
there anything you learned from that exercise from those four profiles?
I didn't learn anything because essentially those four profiles allowed the candidates. I mean, the citizen journalist was allowing them to relay their main messages from their platforms. So if you'd read
Right.
their platforms, you're not going to learn anything new. But for
Mhm.
people who are, who, it's, 4 months are just starting to pay attention or haven't paid attention yet, it's
Right.
useful to have
Like
that laid out.
normal people, not like
Yeah,
us.
no, not
Pay
like
attention.
not like us.
Yeah,
Normal people, exactly, Brigitte.
yeah. So that's
So
useful for that.
always
But
useful.
as a weirdo, a fellow weirdo, like if you had a chance to ask one question of the candidates that you're, and it could be a different question for different candidates, but what is it about them that you'd like to know? Like what would be maybe because maybe I'll steal that idea and go and ask the candidates to answer that question.
Well, I don't. Well, let me just before I answer your question, I'll just say one thing. When I read across the four profiles, what struck me right away is that you have you have three challenger candidates and one status quo candidate.
Hmm.
So that's off
Hmm.
the bat. And then you have two candidates that are willing to engage in effective attacks on the mayor and his position and his performance. And one candidate, Jeff Leeper, who again seems to pull his punches all the time in quote unquote attacking. Well, I don't want to use the word attack the mayor, but
Hmm.
challenging the mayor's performance by name.
Hmm.
Right? You notice that Neil and Alex have no qualms about calling Mark by his name and saying Mark, performed poorly on X, Y, or Z. And Jeff still seems to consistently pull his punches, and he'll only get at Mark's performance seemingly indirectly.
Indirectly. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So that's
That's
what I
fair.
noticed right off the
Hmm.
bat. And to answer your question, well, I would ask, what is their big beautiful idea? Because I don't think
Yeah.
they have yet presented us with a compelling, any of them, a
Hmm.
big beautiful idea that will get Ottawa talking. Now, I don't
Mm.
mean public grocery stores. That's kind of passe. I'm not
Oh, so
talking
it's
about that.
taken anyway. Like
Yeah,
somebody
it's
else is
taken, right?
running with this. Yeah.
Right, right, right. But give us something that is achievable within the first year of your term, that is measurable. Did you do it? You said you were going to do it on the campaign. Did you do it? Give us something and make it something that cuts across all the cleavages in our, urban,
Yeah.
suburban, rural divides, and something that we can all get behind as residents of Ottawa.
I have a suggestion.
Okay,
No cracks left in the sidewalks. There's one measure that could be. I would think it's
could be.
beautiful to have all our sidewalks without a crack in them.
Okay,
You could measure that.
you could definitely measure that. I see that they have their new machines on the sidewalks putting in the tar. It looks kind of odd.
It's ugly. We have the worst sidewalks in this part of the, and I understand it's not like if you're in Florida, your sidewalks they don't freeze,
Did
so
we?
you don't have that problem. Montreal has the same climate that we do in Ottawa.
Right.
So does, well, Toronto a little bit less so, but Montreal is very much comparable. So is Quebec City.
Yeah.
Nowhere in those cities do you see sidewalks the way we do in
Well,
Ottawa, where
you mean
we have
the
those
the patches, right?
the
Black
patches, the
tar
cracks, the
patches.
weeds growing out of the. I mean, I
Yeah,
wrote about this
yeah,
like
yeah.
last year.
Okay,
Every year
that's
I
a
have to
great
write
one.
about this. Yeah, no
That's a
more
good,
cracks.
big, beautiful idea. I don't want to
Yeah.
say I don't want to preempt any of them. I just want them to give me some creative, um, give me a creative, big, beautiful idea before September. You know, something that we can talk about.
All right.
And I noticed that Jeff is an institutionalist, so he will give you commitments. He will create citizen oversight committees. That's all fine, but that's not going to get me excited, and it's not something I can raise at the door
Mm-hmm.
and get somebody
Mm-hmm.
else excited about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. So we'll look forward to that. Maybe people will hear us and come up with this one big
Big
idea,
one, each
big
one
beautiful
should come
idea,
up with one big
BBI.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That'd be great. Anything
yeah.
else you're looking forward to this coming week? Anything you're watching in particular, or we're mostly in reactive mode at this point?
Yeah, so mostly in reactive. I am, well, I'm getting ready to go out into the field to do my own research. And one of the research questions will be exactly uh, whether Mark Sutcliffe's 2022 supporters are migrating to Alex Lawson.
Right.
So I
I'd be
want to start. I want to start finding out how real
right.
this is, because if it is real, as I suspect that it is, it
Mm-hmm.
has major implications for polling in September and early October.
Yeah. I'd be especially curious to hear if for those people who still want to vote for Mark Sutcliffe, why? Like their top reasons. I'd be really curious about
Yeah,
that. So
yeah,
I'll look forward to
I
you.
think
I'd,
that's what we're
yeah,
looking for.
this is great to come up with all the serious data, and there I am just providing the sass. But I think this is a good, it's a good mix. Right. Okay, then. So thanks for
Right.
this, and wish you a
Thank you.
wonderful weekend. And but maybe it
You
will
too.
stop raining, and then we'll have some good times. All right, talk to you
Super.
soon.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.